I first want to thank Jennifer and Leonie for their work on this very important report, and the public advocate for her support in raising the visibility of this very important issue. My name is Diane Morales, and I'm the Executive Director of The Door, a youth development organization that serves over 11,000 young people every year with a wide range of free and confidential services, including education, healthcare, legal, counseling, arts program, and career development services. I stand here with my colleagues today, deeply disturbed by the trends revealed in this report and troubled by the possibility that these findings might be indicative of practices that are harmful to some of the young people that could most benefit from additional support. Over the past 5 years, The Door has seen a marked increase in the number of young people coming to us for GED and instructional services, many of whom have been encouraged to do so by their schools. During this time, roughly 7,000 young people have self-reported that they've come to us based on referrals from school-based personnel. We need to closely examine the practices that are leading to those conversations. It's obvious that we need better and more transparent data, but it's equally imperative from my perspective that we immediately examine the options that do exist for these young people whose needs are not being addressed and maybe cannot be addressed within the current system. We need to seek to understand what it is they need to succeed and how it is that we can provide them with the tools to achieve success. The Door's been successful for 37 years with many of these young people where other institutions have not been. Through a system of comprehensive, integrated services, rigor, and high expectations, we're often able to make a difference when a young person is feeling that he or she has no more alternatives. The Door's always been an option available to these young people who experience challenges in school settings and will always continue to be. That option, however, should be one of many rather than the last resort for students who need us most. I'm happy to talk further with any of you and invite you down to come to The Door to see what we do, to talk to the young people who have experienced this discrimination and these challenges, and to see up close and personal the options that exist for them outside the system. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leonie. Haimson. I'm Executive Director of Class Size Matters. I want to thank the Public Advocate and Kim and Diane for coming down, and of course Jennifer for doing this amazing report, which I'm very proud to even have my name on. We have some concrete recommendations that flow out of our findings because we think it's very important that someone try to address this problem, understand it, and deal with it, because thousands of kids' lives essentially are being lost in the process of ignoring it. First of all, we think that it's critical that the Department of Education in its regular graduation reports release the discharge codes disaggregated so you can tell which of these kids are being reported as going to private schools, parochial schools, leaving the city. All this information is now inaccessible to the public and should not be. Secondly, when the DOE officially reports the graduation rate, it needs to include all the students in our high schools, not just general education students and part-time special ed, but District 75 and self-contained special education students. Not only because the fates of these kids should be just as important to us as general education kids, but also because this provides yet another loophole for the Department of Education to sort of ignore and shunt kids aside if they're not going to be included in the official rate. One thing that Jennifer did not go into detail about today, but is in our report, is the very suspicious numbers that happened with the class of 2005 in relation to the DOE's own graduation reports. Originally, they put out numbers in the Mayor's Management Report in February which showed a decline in the graduation rate compared to the year before. This created headlines, big articles in the New York Times and elsewhere, the mayor trying to explain, well, our reforms haven't really kicked in yet and we don't know what's going on, because of course his great claim to fame was improving all outcomes, including graduation numbers. Later in June, they put out a revised graduation report which showed that instead of the numbers going down, the graduation report had gone up by 8% for this class. And the state did a similar recalculation showing great improvement for the class of 2005 instead of a decline. When you look at the graduation report side by side, it looks like one of the things that may have happened is that after the fact, they pushed more than 1,000 general education students into the special education category so that they would not have to be reported in the official rate, and then a huge number of them were reported as being discharged. Again, another loophole that seems to be used in order to evade what looks to be a very serious problem. One of our other recommendations, which looks like it's already going to come to pass without even having officially released the report, is that the state controller should do an audit. Because even when you get discharge codes, we have to know that those discharge codes are accurate. The state controller last week released a report for school districts outside of New York City showing that some schools have inflated their graduation rates by over 20% by mischaracterizing some of the children who are said to be discharges or transfers, but who are either pushed out to GED programs or recoded in other ways. So this is very critical. We need the discharge codes, and we need to know whether they're accurate, and we're hoping that the state controller can untangle some of this and also look more closely at what happened in 2005, which we consider very anomalous and very, very suspicious. We want an independent research group to look at all the data and try to figure out exactly what's happening here, because even once you get the discharge codes and then you find out whether they're accurate or not, you have to figure out who are the kids being discharged, why are they being discharged, why are they being discharged in the first year in high school in particular, and what exactly is going on here. And we couldn't answer those questions, but somebody needs to, and somebody should be answering these questions quick. And it should be up to the DOE to be looking at this as well, though of course we want someone independent who will release this information to the public. And then as to the ninth grade, the first year of high school discharge rates in particular, we have to be looking very carefully at the entire accountability system, which is very stringent and very tough on schools right now. They're threatening to close schools, they're threatening to do all sorts of things to teachers and principals if the graduation rates don't increase. What is it in the particular accountability system that may be actually contributing to the rise in discharges, and is specifically contributing to the rise in discharges in ninth grade? And we've identified two things which we think possibly may be related. We don't know for sure, but it might be related. And one is that among the the accountability standards in school progress reports is your ninth grade credit accumulation rate. Many researchers have said that you can sort of look at ninth graders and you see which ones are least likely to graduate by how many credits they've accumulated early on in ninth grade. And so if you're going to be grading schools on those ninth grade accumulation rates, maybe schools are looking at these kids early and saying they're not going to accumulate a lot of rates, let's get rid of them right now, especially since discharges, again, aren't counted anywhere in the system against them. So we want to look at that. We also want to look at the fact that the state education department is assessing schools' graduation rate based on kids who have been in the school for at least 5 months. So then if you can get kids to leave before 5 months, they don't get counted against you. So maybe that's another reason. But beyond anything else, we really believe that any accountability system used on the state level, the city level, the federal level, has to include discharges somewhere in it. Because if they don't, if they're only talking about graduation rates and not talking about discharge rates, this problem is only going to get worse. And schools should be responsible in all ways for the kids that start in the first year. They need to feel responsible for their kids. They need to give them whatever services and supports they need to graduate. And finally, the discharge codes should be carefully examined to see that they conform to national standards. We looked at them for New York City, and there are a bunch of discharge codes which should be coded as dropouts, according to the federal government. And that's in the report, so I urge you to look at that as well. And there's just one more thing that I need to add, because my issue is class size, and that's what I like to focus on more than anything else. But ultimately what we need to do in our high schools is make sure that our high schools are structured so that they can successfully graduate all the kids that are within them. Right now, more than 50% of high school students are in severely overcrowded schools, and more than 50% of high school students have classes of 30 or more. And without attacking those kinds of issues, which are the root issues about why our kids aren't successfully graduating and successfully learning, many of them in high school, I don't think this problem will altogether be solved. So Thank you very much, and if people have any questions, they could ask any one of us, whatever questions you might have.
Oh, I'm sorry, goes back to Betsy again.
Oh, it's okay. Are there any questions?